Hello and welcome to this video. This is for students of Math for Business Finance and for students of Math Applications. We're continuing where we left off with our Chapter 2 drill problems, the odd numbered problems that were assigned for homework. In the last video we had gone through 2-9, so now we're going to move on to 2-11. So let me pull it up here. All right, there we go. And let me grab a pen. Okay, this problem says determine the lowest common denominator of the following. This is the following, and we're going to do it A, by inspection, and B, by division of prime numbers. Now, just one quick caveat here. I need to you need to learn how to do it by inspection and division of prime numbers. You may be tested on it, and so therefore, yeah, you have to know it. However, for practical purposes, when I'm doing other work, I never use inspection and I never use by division of prime numbers. Now, I do use prime numbers to help me, but I'm going to show you how I actually go about it, and then I'll also show you how to do the inspection and the division by prime numbers. But again, for all intents and purposes, when I'm doing other work, I don't use either of these, okay? But you do need to know them. So that's, it's presented in the book. That's material that you're responsible for, okay? So let me rewrite the numbers so I can see all of my denominators. Okay, 5/6 and 1/5. Okay, now the way I do it is I'm trying to find the least common denominator. Well, that means I start out with the highest denominator. And the reason why I start out with it is because 1 can go into that number. So if I start out with 12, 1 could go into 12, 12 times. So that makes sense. Now, what I do is I look at all of my other denominators and see if it can go into 12. Okay, and if they can, good. If not, well, you'll see what happens. So 4 can go into 12 3 times, so I know that 12 is still good as the least common denominator. 6 can go into 12 2 times, so I know 12 is still a good common denominator. But 5 doesn't go into 12. Okay, so now my issue becomes, well, if 12 is no longer the least common denominator, what is? Right? Now, I'm going to give a quick shortcut here. And remember, this is for me doing other practical work. All right. Well, if I know that I have 12 and I have 5, I can multiply the 12 times 5 and get 60 and use that as my denominator. But notice I didn't say it's my least common denominator. I don't know if it is or if it isn't. Okay, but it gives me a number that allows me to be able to do the problem using using smaller numbers. And once I'm finished, I might have to reduce the fraction to its lowest terms. Okay, but what I find an awful lot of times is that when I take the 12 and I do multiply it by 5, and getting 60, that will be my lowest common denominator. Okay, now the reason why I'm saying be careful with this and that it might not be the lowest common denominator is because in theory, all right, and I'm just going to try to point this out without actually coming up with a problem. What I really want to do is I want to take 12 and add 12 and get 24 and see if 5 can go into 24. It doesn't. I add 12, 36. Okay, now let's say, and this is, I realize 5 doesn't go into 36, but let's say that whatever numbers I was adding up, 5 went into, and I would end up with 30, and 5 can go into 30. Oh, well then it would, I would use 30 as my lowest common denominator or my denominator. That would be my lowest common denominator. Okay, so to a certain extent, you do need to work through the iterations of adding the 12 as many times, the 5 times, in order to end up with your lowest common denominator of 60. Okay, but as a quick down and dirty, when I'm working problems by myself, I'm just going to take that 12 times 5 and use the denominator as 60, realizing it might not be the lowest one, and that when I finish the problem, I might have to reduce to the lowest terms. So that's how I work through the problem here. Okay, now let's do it by inspection. So, and you'll have to bear with me on this, and I'm going to get a new page here, okay? And I'm going to rewrite the numbers. I had 3/4, and I had 7/12, and I had 5/6, and I have 1/5. Okay, so now I'm going to do it by inspection. All right, well, by inspection, what I'm going to try to do is here, I'm going to say, okay, can 2 go into 4? Yes, it can, 2 times. So I'm going to write 2 times 2 makes 4. Okay, now, can the 4 go into 12? Yes, it can, 3 times. Okay, and since 12 is the largest denominator, I don't have to worry about it, and I know that 2 and 3 can make 6. But now I have a problem with the number 5. Okay, 5 doesn't easily go into any of the other ones, so I'm going to multiply by 5. Okay, and then what I do is I'm going to multiply all of these together. So 2 times 2 is 4, times 3 is 12, times 5 is 60. And I end up with the lowest common denominator of 60. So you can see that that was very similar to how I did it, okay? But when I did it, I just said, okay, I'm going to start out with 12. Can 4 go into that? Yes. Can 6 go into that? Yes. Can 5? No. Multiply by 5. I end up with 60. I didn't have to go through, oh, well, how many times, and then multiplying them together, okay? So that's how you do it by inspection. Right? Now, let's have the division of prime numbers. So if I have 4 and 12 and 6 and 5, okay, and I'm going to start out with 2 as my prime number. So 2 can go into 4 2 times, 2 can go into 12 6 times, 2 can go into 6 3 times, and 2 can't go into 5. So I'm going to bring down my 5. Now, I know 2 can still go into 2, so I'm going to use 2 again. That'll give me a 1. 2 into 6 is 3. 2 can't go into 3, so I'm bringing down the 3. And of course, 2 can't go into 5 is 5. Okay, so now I'm done with the prime number 2, so let me move over to 3. 3 can't go into 1, so I bring that down. 3 into 3 is 1. 3 into 3 is 1. 3 can't go into 5, so I bring down the 5. Right? And if you want, you can make another one here and use 5 because it would be 1, 1, 1, and 1. Right? And so notice what we did is we came up with the same exact thing right there in order to be able to get our answer of 60. Okay. All right. Now I'm going to move on to 213 because this is the same thing, and I'm going to work it all 3 ways again, but I'm going to do it a lot quicker here. All right. Rewrite the numbers so I can see them. 5 over 48 and 1 over 8. Okay, like I said, I'm going to start out with 48 as the highest number because 48 could go into itself once, right? 4 can go into 48. That's like 12 times, okay? 8 can go into 48 6 times, but 32 can't go into 48. Okay, so now the issue becomes, what are the multiples of 48 that 32 and 48 can go into? Now, remember in the last video, I had said I would take 48 and multiply it by 32. And now I'm going to get some kind of huge number, okay? And that's why I said in the last problem, it was relatively easy because I could eyeball it. But reality is what I'm going to do is I want to take the 48 and add it to itself. Okay, so that's 1696. Now, can 32 go into 96? Yes, it can go 3 times. So my least common denominator is 96. Okay. Again, the difference between the last problem and this problem was, I had 12 and 5, and I automatically multiplied to get 60. Okay. But I called that a denominator. I didn't call it the least common denominator, and it just so happened in that problem, it was the lowest common denominator. But here is why I had said, yeah, that's a quick fix, but you have to be careful in using it, because when I take 48 and I multiply it by 32, you know, let me do the math on the calculator real quick. 48 times 32 gives me 1,536, right? That's a huge number. I don't want to work with huge numbers. And it becomes difficult for me to really be gauging mentally. I seem that seems to be a common thing. If I could do it in my head easily, then I'm probably more apt to be correct. If I'm trying to work with 1,536 in my head, it's too big, and I may be doing something wrong. So I'm going to just start adding 48. 48 goes into 48 one time, so that's good. I add 48 a second time, okay, because I know that when I add those together, I get 96. 48 goes into 96 two times. So now I say, okay, can 32 go into 96? Yes, it can, 3 times. All right, so that's how I know 96 is my lowest common denominator. Now, that was me mentally doing it. Okay, again, real quick, 48, start out with 48. 4 can go in the 48, yes. 8 can go in the 48, yes. 32 can't go in the 48. So now I start adding 48 until I can find 32, whatever number for 32 can go into that number. So, and that would make it my lowest common denominator. So 48 is 96. I know 32 can go 96 3 times. So I know that 96 is my lowest common denominator. Okay. Now I'm going to go to a blank slide, and I'm going to rewrite the number and do it by inspection, and then the check by division of prime numbers. So I have 1 over 4, I have 3 over 32, I have 5 over 48, and I have 1 over 8. Okay, so I know 2 can go into 4 2 times. Okay, I know 4 can go into 32 8 times, so I need 2 times 2 is 4 times 2 is 8 to give me 32. I know 2 times 2 times 2 is 8, so that works out good. Okay. Now I need, if I have 2 times 2 is 4 times 2 is 8, and I need to get into 32, that means I need to multiply 8 times 2 is 16, times 2 is 32. All right, and I'm up to 32, and I need to be able to go into 48. Well, I know that 2 times 2 is 4 times 2 is 8 times 2 is 16, and I know 16 can go into 48 3 times, so I multiply that by 3, and when I then end up doing all of the math, I end up with 96. Okay, see why inspection is a lot more. I mean, what I'm doing is sort of like a common sense hybrid of this, but see how confusing this can be. But let me walk through it again, because again, you have to learn it. Okay, all right, 2 can go into 4 2 times. All right, so 2 times 2 is 4. Right, now I know 4 can go into 8 2 times. Okay, that's 8. And 8 can go into 32 4 times. Right, well, 8 times 2, remember I'm staying with prime numbers, 8 times 2 is 16, times 2 is 32. Now, I know that 16 can go into 48 3 times, and then I multiply all together, and I get 96. Okay. All right, now let's do it by division of prime numbers. So I've got 4, 32, 48, and 1. Okay, so, oops, no, 48 and 8, I'm sorry. Okay, 2 can go into 4 2 times, so it's 2. That's 16. 2 into 48 is 24. 2 into 8 is 4. Okay, 2 can go into 2 1 time. 2 into 16 is 8 times. 2 into 24 is 12 times. 2 into 4 is 2 times. Okay, 2 more. 2 and 1, bring down my 1. 2 and the 4 is 2 and the 8 is 4. 2 and the 12 is 6. 2 and the 2 is 1. 2. Okay, 2, bring down the 1. 2 and the 4 is 2. 2 and the 6 is 3. And 2 and 2, 1 is, can't go, so you bring down the 1. Right? 2 again. 1, 1, 3, 1. And you go 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 3. Or you go ahead and put the 3 and go 1, 1, 1, 1. You're trying to get to all ones here. And then you end up multiplying all of these together, and you end up with 96 as your lowest common denominator. I realize that was a little bit long, but again, yes, you do need to know how to do it by the inspection method, and you need to know how to do it by division of prime numbers, because you may be tested on it. It's math. There's generally more than one way to do something, but if I'm going to do problems beyond in other chapters, other work and other subjects or whatever have you, and I ever need to find the lowest common denominator, I showed you how I was going to do it. So go ahead and review that again if you need to, and we'll pick up in the next video with problem 2-15.